All right, welcome back. Today we're jumping into Genesis chapter 30, and let me tell you, this is one of the most raw and intensely human chapters in the entire book. It's packed with family drama, desperate prayers, and some pretty shrewd dealings. But woven through all of that human struggle, you can see the undeniable hand of God, building a nation from this very messy but very real family. And the chapter just explodes right out of the gate with this heartbreaking cry from Rachel to her husband Jacob. I mean, this isn't just frustration. You can feel the desperation in her words. This one sentence sets the stage for everything to come, a bitter rivalry between two sisters, totally rooted in envy, shame, and this deep, deep desire to have a family. So this rivalry, it really is the engine that drives the whole story. It's just a heartbreaking situation, isn't it? You've got Leah, the wife, who is fertile but feels unloved, squaring off against Rachel, the wife who is deeply loved but is barren. And their desperate struggle to give Jacob sons, well, it's going to lead them to some drastic, competitive, and really unconventional ways of building a family. Now, to really get why Rachel is so desperate, you got to put yourself in her shoes. In that culture, having children, it was everything. It was your social security, it was your legacy, and it was seen as a real, tangible sign of God's favor on your life. So to be barren, that was to carry this heavy, public burden of shame. And just to make it worse, all the while, her sister Leah, even though she's hurting from her husband's neglect, is being blessed by God with son after son. So in their desperation, both sisters fall back on a common strategy for their time. Rachel gives her handmaid Bilhah to Jacob, so Bilhah can have children for her. And when Bilhah has two sons, Dan and Naphtali, Rachel feels like she's finally won something. Well, Leah is not about to be outdone, so she gives her handmaid Zilpah to Jacob, and she has Gad and Asher. You see what's happening? This isn't just about building a family anymore. It's become a proxy war, fought right there in the birthing tent. So just when you think the tension can't get any higher, the rivalry takes this really strange and fascinating turn. And it all centers on a plant that Leah's oldest son finds out in a field. Okay, so what are mandrakes? Well, think of them as a kind of ancient folk remedy. There was this widespread belief that they could help a woman conceive. For Rachel, who is just desperate and childless, these plants represented a real, tangible hope, a potential solution she could literally hold in her hands. And you better believe she was willing to bargain for them. When Rachel asks for the mandrakes, Leah's reply is just filled with years of pent-up pain. You can hear the anguish in her voice. She's basically screaming, "You already have our husband's love, the one thing I've always wanted from him. And now you want to take away this one little treasure my son brought home for me?" This just shows you, the fight was never really about kids or plants. It was about love and value and their deep sense of worth. And here is where we see the profound irony in all of this. Rachel gets the mandrakes, her human solution, but it's Leah who, because of the deal, is blessed by God with 3 more children. It's such a powerful moment, and it illustrates a theme you see all through the scriptures. God's blessing is not earned by our human striving or by folk remedies. He is the one who ultimately opens the womb. But after all the rivalry, all the bargaining, all the heartache, the story finally pivots. God turns his attention back to the one who started this whole chapter with that cry of total despair. And there it is, this beautiful, powerful phrase, God remembered Rachel. Now, this doesn't mean he'd forgotten about her, like you or I forget things. In the Bible, when it says God remembers someone, it means he is about to act on their behalf in a huge, decisive way. So after years of waiting, after all the human schemes had totally failed, God steps in directly, in his perfect time. At this point, Jacob already had 10 sons, 10. But this one, Rachel's first, he was different. This was Joseph, the son who was so long awaited, so prayed for, the son of Jacob's most loved wife. His birth is the true turning point of this chapter, and really for the future of this entire family. The moment he's born, Rachel declares, "God hath taken away my reproach." That deep, painful shame she felt, the sorrow that made her cry out, "Or else I die," it was finally lifted. The birth of Joseph was so much more than a joy for her. It was a vindication. It was a restoration of her honor. Joseph's birth doesn't just change things for Rachel, it emboldens Jacob. With a son finally born to his beloved wife, he feels like, okay, it's time. He's ready to leave the service of his conniving father-in-law Laban and go home. But first, he has to negotiate his wages for 20 long years of work. So Jacob makes this really clever proposal. He says he'll take all the genetically recessive animals, the speckled, spotted, and brown ones, as his wages. It sounds like a pretty modest request, right? And Laban, he eagerly agrees. But then he immediately shows his true colors. Before Jacob can even start, Laban secretly goes through the flocks and removes every single animal that fits that description, leaving Jacob with a flock that should make it impossible for him to earn his wages. So how does Jacob respond to being cheated again? Well, he uses this very unusual strategy with peeled branches. And the scripture doesn't present this as magic, it's an act of faith and obedience. It seems God gave Jacob this idea, and then Jacob used his own skill as a shepherd to make sure the strongest animals mated, trusting God to work through his efforts. It's just a perfect picture of that partnership, Jacob's hard work and God's divine intervention. Laban's whole scheme was designed to keep Jacob poor and stuck working for him. But here's a lesson for the ages. You cannot out-scheme the blessing of God. And the result of Jacob's God-given strategy was absolutely staggering. The plan worked beyond anyone's wildest dreams. God's blessing just flowed so powerfully that Laban's flocks actually got weaker, while the flocks that were producing Jacob's wages got stronger and just multiplied like crazy. Laban's scheme to cheat Jacob had completely and utterly backfired. And you have to remember, this is the same Jacob who arrived on Laban's doorstep 20 years earlier with nothing but the staff in his hand. And now, he's become exceedingly prosperous. God didn't just give him what was fair. He poured out an abundant blessing, establishing Jacob as a powerful patriarch, fully equipped to lead the very nation God had promised to build through him. And that really brings us to the main takeaway. Genesis 30 is messy. It's full of jealousy, manipulation, and plain old family dysfunction. And yet, this is the story of the birth of the 12 tribes of Israel. It's this incredible reminder that God's sovereign plan is never stopped by our human weakness. He works through imperfect people and complicated situations to weave this beautiful, unstoppable tapestry of his redemptive story. And you know what? That is a powerful hope for all of us.